In today's crazy world, we're constantly using things we don't need, doing things we don't like, and never really moving forward or getting the results we're hoping for in either ourselves or our animals. Are you ready for a change? Join me, Wendy Patrick, your host on Quantumly Yours, Finnessiam Health's podcast, and become empowered to take control of you and your animals' health and well-being. We're all quantumly connected, so whether you're round the corner or around the world, it doesn't matter, because we can help each other and all work together on our journeys. So come, join me, and together we'll myth bust, share advice, knowledge, truths, and suggestions to help you awaken, grow, and continue your journey to a healthier, happier life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Quantumly Yours. I'm your host, Wendy Patrick from Finnessiam Health, and I have a very special guest today, and we'll introduce her in just a second. I just want to let you all know where you can find us. That's between our Instagram, our Facebook. You'll find us as Finnessiam Health on either of those platforms. On Telegram, we are Finnessiam Holistic Health. You will be able to find our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and also watch the versions of our podcast as well on our YouTube and BitChute. Our YouTube channel is actually under our Dogs of Pride channel, which was our mothership or our head business before Finnessiam took a little branch off of that. And you can connect with us on finnessiamhealth.com. We have a podcast page there where you can subscribe to get email notifications for any future podcasts that are released. And you can also go on to the Contact Us page there and send me a general inquiry, or in fact, set up an appointment with me so that we can do some remote testing on yourself or your pets or animals and work with you through there. So I always please ask that you email me. Sending messages on various platforms never end up getting to me at all, and it just upsets people. So we don't want to do that. But today, I think we are going to get a little enlightened, shall we say, because I have a wonderful guest, and it is Kay Aubrey Chimene. Welcome to the podcast, Kay. I'm going to tell people a little bit about you. I'm just going to read your bio here. It says Kay is an internationally known bio-nutritional consultant and light therapy educator who founded and directs Photonic Therapy Institute. As the owner and director of Grand Adventures Ranch, a holistic wellness center, she's developed light therapy and photopuncture protocols for humans and animals that are successfully used internationally by clients and practitioners. As a writer, speaker, and educator, Kay teaches internationally with a primary focus on using a cleanse, nourish, balance approach toward health for all species. She hosts weekly office hours webinars for her students and the public on best practices for attaining maximum results from any light therapy tools. Kay is the driving force behind the live and online light therapy and photopuncture courses hosted by Photonic Therapy Institute, which I'm diving into very, very soon. In fact, by the time this comes out, I may even be certified. Certifiable, most people know that I already am. But we're going to have a few more letters. Kay's revolutionary courses on photopuncture light therapy combine the accuracy of acupuncture with the healing power of light and are recognized for a national certification by BANS, the Board of Advanced Natural Sciences. Kay also has her BS in animal health sciences from the University of Arizona and completed graduate studies in nutrition, biochemistry, and evolutionary behavior. She is a Reiki master, teacher, as well as a certified light therapy instructor and holds certificates in bioenergy analysis, kinesiology, equine and canine massage therapy, EFT, emotional freedom technique, acupressure, and experiential training techniques. Wow. It's pretty amazing. This lady is incredible. I am very, very pleased to have met her on a few occasions now through Zoom and through different courses and attending some of her weekly um, podcasts and lessons and information sessions. And absolutely amazing, amazing person you are, Kate. Welcome. I am very, very honored to have you here today on Quantumly Yours.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. The intro, I don't hear that intro read very much. You know, it got written and it's like, oh, well, maybe it's a little over the top, you know. But I mean, there's nothing that's not true, but it's like, oh, okay. it's
Yeah,
always it's always different when you hear yourself introduced. So thank
it
you for
is.
such a lovely introduction.
Oh, well, I mean, and it's great, but I mean, I looked at it beforehand. I was like, how do I even cut that down? It's like I couldn't. I didn't want to miss anything out because there's a lot there. But you know, if you don't toot your own horn, it'll go rusty on the shelf. So
That's true. That's true. And the
absolutely.
short way to do it is to say she's OCD.
But I probably got a tissue salt remedy for that. So,
There
you know,
you go. We can fix it.
exactly. But who wants to fix it sometimes, right?
Sometimes,
We
sometimes.
just don't need to do that. So I gotta ask you, Kay, how did you get started with all of this light stuff? Because it's pretty incredible.
Well, uh, sometimes uh, the universe just shows up and it taps you on the shoulder a few dozen times, and then it just hits you with a board because you didn't pay attention.
Oh yes.
And I was planning on vet school. I was going to the University of Arizona and studying, and my health actually was going downhill. I had very, very bad osteoarthritis coming on. Here I was in my 20s and I was really in a lot of pain. I stopped riding and I'd grown up on the back of a horse. Um, and in my early 30s, a friend of mine took me out and she says I'd met her and we'd started riding a lot, and she saw a horse and she says, this is the spitting image of the horse you have on your wall. I had a picture of the horse I'd had growing up. And she says, you got to go see this horse. So we go over, we go and see this horse and I fall in love with him. And yeah,
No.
I had a vet check, but I didn't have ultrasounds or any of that kind of stuff done.
Yep.
Bring this little Arabian horse home, and he was the spitting image of the horse that I'd learned, I'd really shown and been active on all the time I was a teenager. So I bring him home and another friend gets me into doing endurance riding, and I'm working through all my health issues, and he ended up bowing both front tendons. So
Oh,
we were at a ride, he threw a shoe and he ripped both suspensory
oh,
ligaments in the front legs.
what a shame.
And the vets at the race were, put him down. You'll never ride him again. He'll never be out of pain. Go pick out a halter to bury him in.
Oh no.
And I was crushed, but I got him home. And luckily, my veterinarian at the time was very holistic. Now, I did not come out of a holistic world, but
Right.
my vet was very holistic. And she came out about 5 days after the race. And with a bowed tendon, you have very swollen back of the legs. They call it a bow because it looks like a violin bow that's been bent. And she came out, she did ultrasounds, and they were completely torn. And she says, but I never say never. She says, I've been reading about these light therapy wraps that just came out.
No way.
And I was like, I felt horrible. I'd broken this horse, right?
Oh,
So I didn't tell my husband how much money I put on the credit cards. I went out and I bought 2 light therapy wraps for his legs. And I started researching better diet to keep him alkaline. And I had him on, yucca and cat's claw and all these anti-inflammatory herbs. And we started, and at 30 days, I called her and I said, you need to come back out and re-ultrasound him. And she said, well, it's way too early. You got to be, it's 6 months to even think about this. I said, but all the swelling is gone. And
Mhm.
I have a science background. I need to see where we're at. So she
Right.
came back out. She did new ultrasounds on him, and we were both blown away. He had laid down all but one pinpoint hole of collagen. He, in 30 days, he had all the minerals and all of the nutrition he needed to do this, but in
Right.
30 days, he'd built brand new ligaments.
In 30.
And I was like, and when we had ultrasounded him the first time, we found out the reason this had happened to him is that he had old bowed tendons. So his legs were full of
Ah,
scar tissue,
right.
and
Yep.
none of the ligaments and so on could slide next to each other because of all of these adhesions. Well, at 30 days, 80% of those adhesions were gone. So she gave me permission
Incredible.
to start hand walking him. And we started at 15 minutes the first day and 16 minutes. We just started at 1 minute per day. And she came back out at 90 days and his legs were absolutely pristine. I
Wow.
stayed off of him the full 6 months. At that point, we started
Wow.
we started ponying him, behind another horse. And a year later, he took me on another 50-mile ride.
No way.
He is now 39 years old, absolutely sound as a dollar, deaf as a post, down to his last two teeth, very poor peripheral vision, but he is my grand old man right
Oh,
outside
bless.
my door. And he stays, he's been my teacher. He's had ulcers, he's had bad teeth, he's had fly allergies, he's had all these other issues,
Yep.
but
Yep.
he brought me to the light. And then I started learning what to do for my own health. I don't have arthritis anymore. I
Really?
don't have those
Wow.
issues that at 32 had me laid up.
Right. Right.
So that was my introduction to light.
That's incredible you say that. It's amazing how we end up getting on the path that we're on. And it's funny how I'm now coming along going, Kay, Kay, I want to learn this stuff. I want to do this stuff. This makes sense to me now.
Well, that
Whereas,
was
you
me
know,
in my early 30s. At one point, my husband just kind of went, are you ever going to stop taking classes and do something with all of this? Because I went and I had to learn Reiki, and I had to learn holistic nutrition, and I had to learn homeopathy, and I had to learn, all of these energetic approaches and
mm-hmm,
start combining that with the science that I already had.
yep,
And he was the same way, and then I went to learn acupressure and meridian theory and all of those things. So I understand I got to do that next.
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I've wasted so much of my life doing stuff that I was supposed to do or was expected to do instead of following, what I really, really loved at the age of 5 and 6 years old, but everybody would have said I was nuts, where I was
Sure.
talking to animals and making herbal remedies in the backyard from mum's flowers. Pulling heads off stuff and making infusions and crushing stuff and potions, I would call them at the time because that was the only word we had. And then, here we are 45 years later and, keep gathering more and more certificates for the wall and actually going backwards in a sense to pick up where I left off as a kid. And now realizing and remembering that I knew a lot of this stuff 30, 40 years ago.
But all
And
those, yeah, all of those experiences, even the ones that don't seem to fit in, because you were supposed to,
yeah,
as you move forward, they all add to those aha moments. Oh my gosh, you put this with this, and there it is,
right.
right? And so there are no mistakes. You needed to learn the other pieces. You just now have a chance
That's
to
right. Everything
combine
comes
them all.
together at a particular time. Well, it's something. One of the reasons I'm doing this is because I've gathered a lot of information through all those different roads and pathways until now, and you don't have to have multiple lists of degrees or this, that, or the other
Right.
thing. A lot of times, hands-on practical experience and knowledge and your own research and your own learning can get you to almost a more enlightened stage without no pun intended. But certainly the lights had been mentioned to me a few years ago, and I'd heard about some vets doing laser light therapy and stuff like this. And I'm like, oh, and really kind of put it to the side because with the thing is here where I am, you can't do anything that's considered therapy or treatment on animals unless you're under a vet. So a lot of this stuff is actually for my own benefit and my own knowledge and my own increasing of awareness and for my own pets more than anything else
Right.
because I know what I can do with a torch can save me perhaps $10,000 in a vet fee,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
Um,
Easily, easily.
yeah. And with having two horses in the backyard, one of which, funny enough, is an Arabian, a little old guy who look is the spitting image of my heart horse from when I was younger out west. So there we go. Um, but I know with them that a lot of times I'm told, okay, well, there's nobody here in Nova Scotia that can actually treat a horse to this certain degree, then they have to ship them out to PEI.
Right.
So you've just got that cost added to everything else. So as soon as the vet mentions that, whether it's for ACLs on dogs or whether it's for dental work on horses or whatever, it's one of those really, really hard decisions that a lot of people are being forced to make here. And whenever the light stuff started making sense, and I actually took part in the 2-day symposium that you put on a few months back, and that really got it going for me because listening to a lot of different people's experiences, how they had used different therapies and different ways of using the lights, I'm like, oh, hang on, this is just making so much sense because I've done the energy stuff, I'm doing the energy stuff, and it's like, but this amplifies it tenfold and I'm
Right.
seeing it now. And I was, I've been using it for a few things, and Kay was able to clarify something with me the other day that happened to a horse of mine. It's like, oh yeah, that's common. Keep going. Now I'm keep going, and it's basically Murphy's snot. That was.
Yes.
I went and lit him up again the other day, and that night was fine. The next morning, both nostrils are going again. I'm going, okay, we're on to this now. So we're getting this whole clearing out going. And I mean, but it's bringing him around. He's pretty much 30. He's a Morgan Percheron mix with basically no grinding surface. So he eats big bowls of soup 5 times a day, bless him. But the life spark that's still in that boy's eye, and I was able to identify. I knew he needed a tooth pulled and was actually able to identify which particular one it was on which side. But of course, the vet didn't believe that I could possibly have known that. It was just coincidence.
Right. Of course.
But Kay, you're here and I'm taking up all your time. Sorry. Now,
No worries.
you have to tell all of our viewers and listeners what this light stuff's all about. How does that make sense? Let's bring it right back now. We know how it worked with your horse and how you've done it, but how does it work? What is this? What are we talking about?
All right. Well, what I was talking about with the horse, where we had a light therapy wrap that had red light, little red light diodes, put it against the skin, and the red light was absorbed. It's a color of light that the body can absorb into the tissue. And that light provides energy packets, these photons, that help every cell. The simple way to say it is that light therapy gives every cell in the body the energy it needs to do its own job better.
So it supercharges the mitochondria.
That's one of about 20 things that it does.
Right.
Yes, it gives every
Absolutely.
mitochondria the energy to create more ATP,
ATP.
right?
Right.
And that's the very unscientific, non-deep dive version of it. But so that is what's now the new name for that is called photobiomodulation,
Whoa.
which is actually a brilliant term because it's modulating. It's not stimulating or suppressing. It is balancing
Right.
the biological processes of the body with light, with photons. So
Right.
photobiomodulation. And that is part of what we teach. And then my other passion is another form of light therapy called photopuncture. Also heard of, some people hear it as photonic therapy or laser acupuncture,
Right.
because it turns out that light also gets can open acupuncture points and meridians even faster than needles can. It
Wow.
sends photons. Those meridians act to channel light through the body, just like light going through fiber optic cable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with the right color of light that gets absorbed by these very photoreactive points. Turns out that acupuncture points, that tissue is more photoreactive than the tissue around it, which is why the light gets funneled into that acupuncture point when it's targeted. So we work with both ways of doing light. I love them both. They're both, it's like children. People will go, which one do you want more? I'm like, it depends. Don't ask me to choose.
Chocolate or strawberry. Yeah.
And we use both ways together. Okay. So a lot of times we'll use the photobiomodulation, or the wrap, or where we're saturating the tissue with light. We'll use that to generate new light, to lower pain, generate new tissue, lower pain, repair things, help with the brain, the muscles, the nerves, or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then we'll use the photopuncture to create a very fast systemic response. So maybe restructuring, rebalancing chiropractic alignment, maybe opening and supporting digestion, or opening and supporting better endocrine balance. All of the things that we know, the different energetic pathways, the meridians, can help support and control.
Okay. So
Okay,
you
so
can use this for absolutely everything and anything then, basically, the same way as energy work and Reiki and stuff like that.
exactly.
So can you do any harm with it though? That's the biggest question.
You can super saturate, reach a point of saturation where you don't get any more benefit.
Okay.
And just like anything else, if you go too fast and you don't clean out, so if you don't flush the toilet, or excuse me,
A
if you don't
good way of
if
putting
you
it.
don't empty the drain field
Yep.
before you flush the toilet, you can cause the body to get very sick, a Herx reaction, or
Yes. They're
so
lovely.
you can send the body into detoxification too quickly.
Yep.
Are you harming? No, probably not. But it's not pleasant, and then people
Exactly.
stop.
Exactly.
So we always recommend, especially the sicker that the person or the animal is, the more time you spend opening up lymph drainage, putting the body into a parasympathetic state so you sleep
Right.
better and poop better and do all of, and then address the pain.
Ah. See,
So
I wish I'd known this before that. Because this whole big road started opening up for me whenever I finally discovered what my health issue was, and it was Lyme disease. Once
mm,
I knew what the beast was, it was like, give me everything you got, because I want to deal with this. So I had a major herx,
oh,
major.
Lyme disease is awful for you. Yeah, it's one of the worst. And yet I've got a couple of very close friends, customers, clients, the clients that became really close friends,
Yes.
that Arizona is one of the places people move to with Lyme's, where they can live. We get a lot of chemical sensitivity because people have overdone the Lyme's treatments, and they go into, MCS, multiple chemical sensitivity. So they come
Ah,
out here to Arizona, where there's less. They can live more rural. There's less pollution, less electronic pollution, etc.
okay. Right.
And they can make it down to the Sea of Cortez. And so one of the treatments is to go soak in salt water. So
Yep.
they can go down to the Sea of Cortez, and they can come back up and meet with the medical. There's a lot of Lyme's people here, even though we don't have a lot of Lyme's disease in Arizona.
No, no, it's not as prevalent. Although there's so many commonly misdiagnosed
Yes, and it's
illnesses.
growing. It's like
Oh
anything
yes.
else, they're bringing it here. So, um,
Well, it's any blood-borne insect can transfer it. Plus, it's transmitted sexually as well. So hello.
hello. So the beautiful thing is, with the light, we can support the body's ability to detox more
Right.
gently.
Nice.
Okay. and detox the brain, because most people don't realize one of the big reasons for brain imbalances is that we get oxidative stress that turns the lymph system at the base of the brain into concrete, where the
Yes,
brain
pretty
can't
much.
clean.
Yep.
And medical science didn't even acknowledge that we had lymph drainage at the base of the brain until maybe 10 years ago.
Seriously. Wow.
So this is something that's a
Wow.
growing area of understanding, that we can use light to open lymph before we use the light to start all of you. So being targeted, being very, instead of just going into a light therapy bed and saturating your whole body with light, maybe you need to do this in a specific order.
Right. So can like just anybody listening to this or watching this today, can anybody is able to do this?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. My passion is empowering people to take care of themselves and their animals without massive vet bills. And it can be complimentary. I'm
Yep.
certainly not saying
Yep.
don't do this, but we have not had a non-trauma vet bill on our ranch in 20 some years.
Wow.
We have not, I had to explain to the insurance agent for my life insurance that I didn't have a doctor. They're like, why not? I said, because I haven't needed one in 25, since
Right.
I had, back in the early
On my
90s
own. Yeah.
when I had the arthritis and I had a gallbladder removed and those things before
Yes.
I learned how to take care of myself.
Yes.
So have I occasionally, gotten sick? Yes. But nothing I couldn't do without my light and my herbs and with my own issues. So my own tools.
And
Uh,
what kind of animals do you have on the ranch?
oh, well, let's see. We just had 2 horses adopted, so we're down to 8 horses. Um, 8 horses, 2 dogs. Last count was 26 mule deer most mornings.
Oh wow.
The javelina come through, the bobcat come through, the pronghorn antelope come through. There's a mountain lion that occasionally shows its face. There's, a little of everything in the area, but the only ones that we actually mean to be feeding are the dogs and the horses and the occasional stray cat.
And you're in Arizona, right?
Yeah, we're in the mountains. We're
You're at the
we're at
mountain.
5,000 feet, so we stay quite a bit cooler
Oh,
than Phoenix or
wow.
Tucson. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I lived in Alberta for a while, and that was over 3,000 above sea level. So, yeah, I know yeah, that's the air's clear where you are.
It's very nice. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I live here. I've got clean air, clean water, very
Nice.
safe zip code. So
Nice.
don't
Nice.
tell anybody that though. We don't want them coming here.
Well, I might just have another move in my future.
That's right.
So how does somebody go ahead and go and get a torch then, or what do they
Well,
do? How do
there
they?
are a variety of, yeah, there's lots of tools on the market. All right.
Right.
People can start for $40, $50 with the equivalent of a grow bulb. Can you do targeted work with it? No.
No.
But if you need a little extra energy, you can use that. Um, what we do is we try to empower people through education. Don't just go buy a tool and then have it sit in a drawer because you don't know what to do with it. So
Exactly.
all of our
Exactly.
right, all of our tools, whether it's starting with a red light torch, something like this, okay? Whether
Okay.
it's starting with a little flashlight or working all the way up to pad-based systems or panels or that kind of thing. All of ours come with some starter classes to help people understand how light affects the body, what colors we use, what's a good tool, etc. And depending on then what you're trying to address, if you want to do this just for yourself, you may never need something besides a torch or 2 torches if you're doing for animals. If you're working toward somebody or an animal with serious health issues, like my horse that had the bowed tendons, we used wraps that saturated the area. We
Right.
work with pad-based systems that can run anywhere from 1,500 all the way up to 5,000 or 6,000, depending on how many pads it can control at one time, and what kind of,
Right.
we also add pulsing frequencies into this that adds another dimension to the
Mm,
healing. So much like if you were using a tuning fork
right.
to bring the cells into vibrational balance, you can do that with light by pulsing it at those same, yeah, the Fibonacci tones, the Nogier frequencies, etc. Those match the sound tones, but we put that into the light, so we get the benefit both sound and light when we
So
use pads.
that flashing light, whenever you put it onto that setting, because I have a couple of torches, obviously I've already started this proce- process, which is why you're here and we're here. Um, so just so people are understanding what we're talking about here, the torch literally looks like a little hand torch for those who are just listening and not watching us. Um, and it has three settings on the torch for the most part. So you have, once you put it on, you've got a high beam, so it's going to cover a larger area.
Well,
Whenever
then
you,
wait a minute, I'm going to stop you. The
okay.
high is not a larger area. The high is more light per second coming out.
Oh, here we go. Let's get into
All
this
right.
good stuff.
So,
Yes.
so if you're watching here, this is the high setting. You can see it's very bright against my hand.
Very bright. Yes.
If I go to low, it's not quite so bright.
Right.
And then if I do it again, it's pulsing. Now this
Okay.
is at 8 hertz, 8 times per second. And that matches the, well, it goes up and down, but the pulse rate of the earth in
Mhm.
general, if they take all of the different frequencies of the earth and they average it out, the earth pulses at about 8 times per second.
Okay.
So it's not the same as a musical note. It's this one is specifically good for breaking apart stuck energy, muscle cramps, knots, neuropathy, anything that's old, cold, and dead or stuck. That's when we use that pulse, the pulsing in the torches. We
Right.
can use it to push energy along the spinal cord or push energy along a meridian. Okay.
Now, what about, I'm just thinking, just jumped into my head, something that's very common, and because I had background, lots of experience with it being a dog groomer for many years, hematomas.
Very, very useful, especially for ones that are just stuck there and then you have this dark spot. Yeah, you can use it for any kind of pooled blood, lymph that's not moving, that sort of thing.
Just stick a light on it and let it do its work.
That's right. That's right. It
Fantastic.
breaks it apart beautifully. Uh, there's no hard and fast rule when to use the high, the low, the pulse. People find what works for them. But in general, anytime I'm activating acupoints, if I'm using this for saturating an area, okay, then I'm going to have it on high. So it's still at a rate that the body can absorb safely. It's not going to heat things up.
Right.
Um, but if I'm working with a cat or I'm starting in the eyes, I'm going to start on low.
You
And
can
they're
use this in
perfectly,
the eyes?
yep, it's perfect. Not only is it safe, it's there's more and more studies coming out
For our
for
listeners,
repairing
Kay is
glaucoma.
shining that right into her eye, just for the
Yeah, I
listeners
have it
right
against the
there.
eyelid. My eye is closed. I have it against the eyelid.
Hmm.
And you could, we have people using this for dry eye, glaucoma, progressive retinal atrophy, etc. So um, there are more and more studies coming out. We work with Dr. Janice Ells, who is one of the leading researchers at the University of Wisconsin on photobiomodulation for the eye, and she's delighted with our torches.
Wow.
She, the that's the beauty of working with LED light as over laser. This is one of the main questions we get asked.
Mm.
But there's a lot of money wrapped up in laser companies for equipment that costs $15,000 to $50,000 for them to try to convince people that laser is better than LED, that
Right.
it'll somehow go deeper and work better. But the research doesn't prove that out. When they actually design studies that have exactly the same amount of light over the same amount of surface area delivered for the same amount of time, they got identical results.
Wow.
Or, statistically insignificant differences.
Well, that's
Now,
interesting you say that, because a lot of people that I've heard, or opinions that have been passed around out there, where, oh, those things that you can buy yourself, you can't do anything with them unless you're a proper vet and you have all of these multi thousands of dollars worth of equipment. There you go, folks. You hear it from an expert.
and we have more and more veterinarians now offering LED products, offering our products. Um, the beauty of LED is it is diffuse. The light is diffused enough that it's not going to harm your eyes. It's not going to harm tissue. It's when you're starting to work with lasers that people need to wear the safety sunglasses, that they have to protect their eyes, because the only difference in light, it's the same color or wavelength of light. It might even be the same amount. It's just that the laser is forcing all of the light to go in lockstep. So, in a straight line, if you took a little laser pointer from the store and you pointed it at a wall 6 feet away from you, it's still that tiny, most of it is still that tiny little point.
Right.
Whereas working with an LED flashlight, it's going to spread out.
You get
right?
the wall covered.
So,
right.
But once it's against the body, once that laser light hits the skin, it's scattered anyway. All right. So the body doesn't care. It wants a like 660 nanometer red light, or 635, or whichever, or 850 near infrared, or whatever color you're using. The body doesn't care if it comes coherent with a laser or non-coherent with an LED.
Very interesting.
And that's one of the reasons why the World Association of Laser Therapy, WALT, and the North American Association of Laser Therapy, NALT, those are the two big industries. They have changed their names to the World Association of Photobiomodulation, the North American Association of Photobiomodulation, because more and more of their members are realizing and now doing research with LED versus laser.
Interesting.
Okay.
That is very.
There are times when laser is better. Laser's better when you need to pinpoint a very specific nerve. There's a brilliant woman in Australia named Roberta Chow that's doing laser anesthesia, where she can deaden the nerve for long enough to do surgery.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, I don't think our listeners or watchers need to have that.
No, most of us don't need that. And there are other times. The beauty of a laser system that costs $50,000, $60,000 is I can change the actual wavelength or the actual pulsing rate, 1,000 different ways.
Right.
But it's not, in my opinion, it's not worth the $50,000, $60,000 have to pay for that system to be able to do that.
So I'm
not dissing lasers. Anybody who has invested in a laser system can do photobiomodulation, do a great job with it. If they're careful, they can even do photopuncture. But it's easy for laser to blow out an acupoint and make it unuseful for 24 to 36 hours because it's too much light.
Much.
Okay.
Wow.
So
too much of a good thing. Yeah.
Too much of a good thing. If it's class 4 and high laser, low laser, no, you could do it, but you also have to be much more exact. When you're working with something less than a millimeter across, you better know where that acupoint is, right?
Right.
When you're working with something that's 2 centimeters across, you can get targeted, but not have to be quite so perfect.
Right. But when the laser hits the skin, you say it doesn't matter because it scatters anyway.
Right. Underneath the skin. That's correct.
Right. So, but still, there's still nothing to warrant you spending $4,000 over $400 to get the same results with a red torch.
Right. I mean, like our red plus torch, which is this is our flagship. This is the red plus infrared.
Right.
This runs $525.
Okay.
With an educational course, with charts, etc.
Right.
And so a veterinarian could empower everybody in his office or her office to have 1 or 2 of these on their hip, rather than spending $25,000 to $50,000 or $15,000 to $50,000 per room for equipment that's not very portable.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Plus, I mean, you've got your average pet owner or horse owner
They
at
go,
$500 for 10, 15, 20 years of use. I mean, how
right.
long do these things last, Kay?
Well, we've been selling this type for 3.5 years.
Right,
We haven't had any go. We've had a couple that were we had to replace a switch,
right.
but that's and nobody's been able to break the lens. The only times we've ever had a problem is if they were dropped straight down, the
Mm.
switch would short out from a battery, and we've actually been playing with that and fixing that and doing a slightly different engineering on that.
Hmm.
So there's no reason they shouldn't last decades.
Right, right. And I
Okay.
mean, the pads last a long, long time, don't they?
I have pads. I have a pad-based system that I know has done over 10,000 sessions
Wow.
because of trade shows. You
Yeah.
might do a few hundred people with it every weekend.
Wow. So you do trade shows and stuff with these as well, or well, used to before COVID?
We had our first trade show in 2 years, in a year and a half. The last week in March, my partner did the Iowa Horse Fair
Oh,
because
wow.
we've always been at the Iowa Horse Fair and wanted to support that. And it did change quite a bit. In previous years, we've had a lot more pad-based systems out. This year, what we did is we would just hand the torches to the person and have them do themselves.
Fantastic. Well, that's wonderful because then, yeah, there you go, folks. This is something that you can do. You don't need to, you can do no harm, which is our most basic bottom line is do no
Exactly.
harm. So it's non-invasive. You can learn all sorts of stuff. You can go and do courses as well. So you can take this to the limit as much as you want. I've already got my courses. I've got some pads or my torches and some pads. And I've done the basic one, the basic course that comes with the torches. It's very easy. It's very nice. It breaks things down on a very simple level. Anybody can do it and understand, then feel more comfortable rather than getting that piece of equipment like you've done many, many times before and thrown it in a drawer, as Kay was saying.
That's
So
right.
there's no excuse now. And once you actually use it a few times and even follow the charts that come with your torches and even see over a period of a couple of weeks a change that you can do with something, whether that's in yourself, whether it's in one of your pets, you will be hooked. I can guarantee you.
And it
And
may not be a couple of weeks.
well,
We had one, it may not even be a couple of weeks. We had one lady this week who shared images of a dog that she worked with, a puppy that couldn't use its back legs, and the vets were, recommending all sorts of very expensive invasive surgeries and so on.
yep.
And they went out and they used the light and they did some of the spinal balancing with the dog. It's fine.
Wow.
One session, she was up and running. So
Incredible.
sometimes it's as easy as unpinching that pinched nerve,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yes.
And I'm not going to swear that you're never going to need more than one session, depending on what's going on.
Right.
But I've worked with literally hundreds of dog owners that have been able to avoid ACL surgery. All right. That right there is one of our now
Here it's 10
students.
grand.
We had a woman come take our course because her 175-pound Great Dane had ripped an ACL.
Mm.
As she came and took our dog class November of 18. She and her daughter just opened their Light Therapy Center for Humans and Dogs in Bellevue, Washington.
Oh,
They've
wow.
both been through all of the training, and because she had such a remarkable response, and they went all in
Yeah.
because it was that fast being able to bring the dogs out of this huge Dane, and she's in her 70s. She couldn't have lifted this dog off the ground,
Right.
and so she needed to be able to help this dog get out and do what it needed to do.
Right.
So yeah, it's not always instantaneous, but it is remarkable how much it can shorten the healing time, lower the pain while they're healing. um, help even in performance. Sometimes we're talking about pain and health issues, but light therapy took off. It really started in the horse world,
Mm,
in the big money horse world.
right.
Okay.
Right.
And this is all about performance. If
Hmm.
your racehorse could knock 2 or 3 seconds off, right?
Hmm.
If you could keep your hunter jumper or your eventing horse on the field, if you could, improve performance. And it was right after I got started using the light in the early 90s, and I started working at dog shows. I used to show dogs. I sold supplements. I was at the shows. And so for about a decade, I started taking my lights, and then it became more, and I was doing massage and body work on humans and dogs, and I was selling supplements. But the more I pulled out the lights, the less I needed to do any of the rest of it.
Right.
And the it taught me so much. My hands would go on dog after dog after dog after dog. And we would use the muscle testing, the kinesiology, and so on for what were their nutritional levels. But the only reason somebody's going to come back to me is if they went back in the ring and that dog won a blue ribbon,
Right.
right? If their movement improved, if their body language, if their top line improved, whatever. And I did that very successfully, made a lot of money at it, quite frankly, for about 10 to 12 years until we bought this ranch in 2004. So, 2005, excuse me. So it taught me just how much could be done. One, one lady brought me a little Australian Terrier, and now this dog was a solid piece of muscle. Okay. And he was a top winning show dog. So he's a stud dog. He's still intact, solid muscle, beautiful little thing. And when she came up, luckily, I always did my assessment, and I could see that his neck couldn't turn, and you could feel that the wing of his first vertebra, C1, was jammed right up against his jaw, right? His neck was kinked. And luckily, I had her feel how out of balance it was. Okay.
Right.
So then I didn't do anything else. I just grabbed the lights and I started lighting, and I had lights on either side of his neck. And I'm talking to her and not paying any attention. And all of a sudden, this little dog went, "Ruff!" And he grabbed my hand. He grabbed, and he didn't bite down, but he could have hurt me.
Yep.
And she started to get really mad at him. You can't allow that kind of behavior on a show dog, right? They cannot have bad manners. And I went, "No, no, no, no. I just hurt him." And she says, "You haven't done anything yet." I said, "Sure I have." And I had not touched him again yet. I said, I'll bet you his neck is in balance now. So she went over and she touched her dog, and her jaw just dropped. She's like, "Oh my God, he can turn his head." And all we did was lights, releasing and balancing the tension of the ligaments in his neck.
Incredible.
And that's, it built quite a reputation for me, right? This was
No
really,
kidding.
and it's non-invasive.
Hmm.
And it, because these dogs would then go out and win, that paid, people would fly me to Westminster to help work on their dogs and do this kind of
Wow.
thing, because it was something that we could do very easily.
And very
And
quickly.
I've never had anything but veterinary support. In fact,
That's
we
phenomenal.
train veterinarians to do this now.
Right. That is absolutely phenomenal. Okay, this has been an absolute, well, there's no other word for it but enlightening time spent
Well,
with
I'm
you.
glad you liked it.
Very, very good. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions from this. And in fact, I would think that we're probably going to have you back, because we are always open for people to ask questions and get in touch with us. Any of the links and everything that are attached to our website or to this podcast, wherever you're watching or listening to it, you should have all the links as to how to get in touch with me and all the links as to how to get in touch with Kay. And certainly, if you have questions or comments, let us know. And we can always do this again, because we just love doing this stuff and getting information and education out to you guys, and help you get better results and have a better well being for both you and your pets. So I think we're wrapping that up today, Kay. Thank you very much indeed. And I'll say thanks for everybody that joined us. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you again on the next episode of Quantumly Yours.
Thanks for
Stay
having me,
quantum.
Wendy. It was fun.
You're very welcome, Kay. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much indeed.
All information, products, and topics discussed in the show are simply the host and guest's personal opinions and are for informational purposes only. None claim to offer a diagnosis, treatment, or cure. All listeners and viewers are encouraged to do their own research and consult with their own healthcare providers before changing or adapting any new protocols. Finnessiam Holistic Health, nor any of its entities, assume any responsibility or liability for any consequence relating directly or indirectly from the information contained within the podcast.